Hey everyone, welcome to week 2. We're going to explore a few new ideas, and you'll get a better glimpse of that through this slide presentation and obviously supplemented by your readings, which is a great time to remind you that you do need to be doing the readings. If the readings aren't referenced in the forum posts and they're not referenced in your assignments, then you're not going to do well. So there's not a lot of shortcuts. So let's get started. There are 3 readings this week, and if you go to the Moodle platform in the week 2 readings, you'll see the 3 folders in there. One of them is sort of the backbone for your final project. It's called A Stake in the Business. It's a real in-depth look on the principles and beliefs of the Outback organization, referred to as OSI in the readings, but now known as Bloomin' Brands. They may have changed the corporate name, but they haven't changed the principles and beliefs, which is how we're going to make a determination as to whether or not the idea that you come up with your final project actually supports and furthers the brand and the principles and beliefs, or it detracts from it. So just a few little housekeeping reminders before we get into week 2. I'm not concerned about quality of discussion posts, but I am concerned about quantity. If you're unclear about the expectations for the discussion forum, please check the rubric. Also, your last reminder, if you didn't get Beer School yet, you need to. We start reading it next week. So objectives for this week, we want to talk about the difference between creativity and innovation. There's a great reading on innovation from Fast Company magazine that I think you'll enjoy. You're also going to do some reading on leadership. Another interesting article on contextual intelligence that you'll be reading that has to do with it's from the article The 3 Ways of Great Leaders. And then we're going to explore something called the Timmins model, which is a way of evaluating whether or not you actually have an idea that you can bring to fruition by looking at whether or not it truly is an opportunity, whether or not it is supported by the resources that you have in place, and whether or not it's supported by your team. So we'll be looking at the Timmins model as well. So first reading is the one about innovation. And it talks about the fact that creativity is thinking of new and appropriate ideas, where innovation is actually successfully implementing those ideas. So in other words, creativity is the concept, innovation is the process. A lot of people have great ideas. The innovation comes by whether or not they're actually able to execute those. So in order to act upon ideas, all organizations need to have 3 things in place, and this is where the Timmins comes in. They need to have opportunity, they need to have the resources, and they need to have the team. You need to keep this in mind when you start thinking about the final project. When you have an idea of what Bloomin' Brands can do to create a new revenue-producing concept, all 3 of those opportunity, resources, and team need to be in play before we can determine whether or not this is really going to work. The other article that you're reading on leadership talks about something that really segues and dovetails into that whole Timmins model perfectly, and it's this idea of contextual intelligence. And it's the differentiator between success and failure. So here's a perfect example. The download stations for Starbucks that we read about in week 1. What was missing from that idea was the context of it. That had a very short shelf life. And because it wasn't really thought all the way through in terms of, is this the right idea for Starbucks? And you could argue yes or no. That's one thing. And then the other is this the right time? And then obviously it wasn't, because by the time they acted on it, technology had passed them by. What was missing was the context. Was there a demonstration of contextual intelligence in the rollout of these download stations? And I would argue no. So when we start thinking about an idea, whether it's for the business that you're in right now, a business that you're familiar with, or your final project with Outback, what you're bringing forward needs to be in context with the brand of the existing concept, and also needs to work in relationship to the opportunity team and resources, and it has to be within context of the greater industry. So here's an example. You're in a bakery concept. You could say, "Oh, I think we're going to jump on this cupcake bandwagon." Well, the cupcake bandwagon is leaving. That idea is now out of context. It's just like a download station. It's already passed. That ship has sailed. So we need to have our ideas in context with the internal environment as well as the external environment. So entrepreneurs don't necessarily create new ideas out of thin air. The real genius in an entrepreneur is that they bring together a combination that no one's seen before. It's not that they're reinventing. You don't reinvent a food item. You don't create a food item from scratch that never ever existed before. You put together things in a combination that no one's ever seen before. So the best example I can give you when it comes to our business and this creative innovation is this whole business model of food products coming out that now have bacon in them. It's taking a combination that no one had ever thought of before. So here's a visual of the Timmins model. Obviously, it's more in depth on the platform, but it's the idea of having the resources, the opportunity, and team. And don't just go by what's on this PowerPoint presentation. Please look at the lesson notes as well. It's far more in depth. So how are we going to apply to this week's lesson? We're going to look at what new ways can blooming brands grow revenue within the context of their brand. That's how we're going to show contextual intelligence. How will the resources of blooming best be utilized based on what you know at this point, and what's the best way to take advantage of the team that's already in place. So team and resources come from the Timmins model. Opportunity obviously is from the Timmins model as well, and you're going to do it within the context of blooming brands. You're going to understand the context of blooming brands because you will have read A Stake in the Business. So you'll have an opportunity then in this week's homework assignment to apply the Timmins model and to look at this idea of contextual intelligence and see if you can take what you'll be reading about, what I'm talking about right now, and apply it within the context of assignment 2. Obviously, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, you should get in touch with me before Sunday night. So, a little reminder, each week's assignments will help you for your final assignment. So, make sure that you do a good job, that you do research each week, and that you really give some critical thinking to your assignment, because if you do a good job each week on your assignments and you pull that through to your final assignment, putting your final assignment together will be easy. If you don't do a great job, you're going to have problems with your final assignment. You're going to have way too much work to do at the end of 6 weeks. So I think I talked about this last week. I'll mention it again. I picked Outback not because I think it's this great company. I think they do a nice job, though. Not because I think that it represents the kind of restaurants that you guys want to work in or the kind of business that you want to be in. There's enough information available on Outback that we can create something for them that is fairly easy to figure out whether or not the opportunity, resources, team, and context is there, because there's enough written on the company. If I had picked another company, or I allowed you guys to pick your own companies or develop your own concepts, I would have been very difficult to determine whether or not you were actually applying the content from this class. So don't get caught up on the fact that it's Outback. Really look at it as a forum to think creatively and innovatively and to apply class content. So, favorite quote from this week? One of the biggest issues facing organizations in the early part of the 21st century is the commercialization of new ideas, specifically the issue of how organizations can create cultures and processes that support original thinking, which leads to the development of innovation. This is a tricky business, not least because innovation is a tricky word. Innovation used to mean newness in a meaningful sense, but increasingly the word has anesthetized the idea of ideas. Innovation is now a suffix applied to everything from new flavors of jelly to new colors of socks. And the reason that I brought that up is that if you decide that you're going to develop a new martini for all the Outback restaurants. That's not necessarily the type of creativity and innovation I'm looking for. We need to think bigger. You're not bringing something that already exists, one more version of it to market. You're thinking bigger than that. We're going to create some big time revenue for this company. So innovation, being at the right place, the right time, that's the contextual intelligence, with the right team and the appropriate resources. That's the Timmons model, all within the context of your brand and then making it happen. Have a good week 2. Don't let everything go to the end. Make sure you look at the rubric for the assignment before you do assignment 2. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know. Thank you.